Right, it was a very good time hanging out. But it is now raining, so we should probably go inside. Oh look, Kevin's house. Let's go in, boys. You think we should not? Yeah, it's our house. Why are you being so weird, man? Recording us.
$998, $999,
Hey, Kevin.
1,000. Oh, what's up, guys? I didn't know you guys were gonna come visit.
We're just in the neighborhood, and we thought, why not see what Kevin's up to?
Oh, I wish you guys told me. I was just kind of working out,
Oh, that's pretty cool.
But since you guys are here, I was wondering if you guys can help me out with my speech.
Of course. We gotta be home by 8 because of the virus, so.
Well, guess what? You're staying.
Okay.
So just sit down, get comfortable, guys.
Oh, okay, sorry. So what's your presentation thing about?
Oh, don't worry, that's in my intro. No, please take a seat.
He was gonna sit in front of me.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So, how are you guys doing?
It's raining and we're wet, so.
Yeah.
Alright, never mind. Alright. So get ready for my speech, guys. So, according to the Death Penalty Information Center, which is a website that keeps all the death penalty cases throughout the country, the United States executed about 22 prisoners in several states, while only about 34 new death sentences were imposed. So, we've all heard about the death penalty before.
Yes.
This punishment is handed out to the most dangerous and vicious members of our society.
Of course.
But as we all know, everyone's life is sacred. If we apply that logic, shouldn't we also value the life of criminals, even if their crime was a heinous one? According to the Death Penalty Information Center, which updated their information at the end of 2019, on their website it shows that which states still allow this proposition to continue. My thesis is that the government should find an alternative method of handing out punishments to criminals, such as handing out larger sentences for them. Instead of letting them go easy by killing them, we should punish them for the crimes they committed. If they did the crime, they should pay the price. So, first I will be talking about the problem with the death penalty. Second, I will be talking about the laws trying to change the proposition. And finally, my last point, I will be discussing how we should provide longer sentences for criminals instead of giving the capital punishment to them. So, I will first be talking about the conflicts the death penalty has. With a proposition like the death penalty, it's difficult to control all the minor details, such as if the criminal was an innocent the whole time, the whole execution, what would they be using, and the time and date of when the person would be executed, and also the cost of the execution. The government must be able to handle the death penalty with ease instead of having it all over the place. It's difficult to have any type of proposition like this with the amount of details the government must go through to make sure that it goes smoothly. If the execution might go wrong, which causes the death penalty to have lots of problems. One source that I was able to get from the Washington Post states that the capital punishment is withdrawing away because the process of the administration of it is so expensive. What the quote is trying to say here is that the capital punishment is too expensive. The more cases that are involved with capital punishment, the more the government will be wasting in total. In some cases, some of the prisoners won't be executed the same year. It might take more years, such as a decade. In the same article from the Washington Post, it states that evolving is not a synonym for improving, and a society can become as America arguably is becoming and fertilized as it matures. How can our country improve if we have this proposition? Most countries around the world, such as Mexico, which got rid of the death penalty in 2005, France got rid of it in 1981, and Argentina got rid of the death penalty in 2008. If these countries are able to get rid of their capital punishment, what's stopping the United States in getting rid of the capital punishment? We would be saving lots of money, and we would use those funds for something else. So, after that, I will be discussing laws that are trying to change the death penalty. With a proposition like this, there should be challenges that we must have in order to control it. Since some states don't want the death penalty, they're planning or already planned on getting rid of it entirely. Some people believe that we are saving lives with getting rid of these dangerous criminals. But in reality, we are saving lives. We aren't saving lives, we're getting rid of lives. We should give them longer sentences instead of sentencing them to death. I believe that we should have longer sentences to criminals with the death penalty. This, in my opinion, would be a better way for the government to use their funds. So my first point is getting rid of the death penalty in states. For my first source, it was from the death penalty info. The quote from the article states that in May 2019, the New Hampshire legislature voted to abolish the death penalty. As we can see, New Hampshire was already able to get rid of the death penalty in their state. We can already see the progress that states are making to improve their justice system. I believe that all states should do what New Hampshire was doing right now. I believe they should replace the death penalty law with a law giving them a longer sentence. My second point is that in the same article from the death penalty info, this source states that Ohio suspended executions in the wake of a court decision comparing its execution process. This quote shows that Ohio made the decision to get rid of the death penalty due to the type of executions they had. Some of the execution styles they had were suffocation, waterboarding, and chemically being burned. I believe that Ohio should now change its laws to give a longer sentence to its criminals instead of handing them out the death penalty. The last source comes from the Seattle Times. This quote states that the view that the death penalty saves lives because it does not. Taking a life wouldn't save a life. Getting rid of someone isn't saving anyone at all. We should have criminals have longer sentences instead of them having them be killed in prison by capital punishment. Finally, I will be talking about how we should give the criminals longer sentences. We should give criminals with longer sentences because they are able to think much longer with what they have done. They also wouldn't be killed by the death penalty, and also helps with reducing crime outside of prison. In my first source, it's from The Guardian. The quote says that the prison would have a further dramatic effect on cutting crime. This would make more criminals stay behind bars longer. This will keep the criminals longer, and then the government wouldn't need to execute them. Second, for my second source, it's also from The Guardian. As well, the quote states that this approach increased the prison population, but also led to reductions in overall levels of crime. It shows that the crime levels lowered since the criminals are locked up. We can't tell if the criminals are locked up. They aren't going to be executed. Now that I finished with all my points, I'm ready to go on to the conclusion. First, I talked about the problems that the death penalty follows. Second, I talked about changing laws for the death penalty, and I finally discussed how keeping criminals locked up would be a better alternative than having a death penalty. The government should find an alternative method of handing out punishments to criminals, such as having them have a longer sentences. Since the government is handing out the punishment, it should be more responsible for these criminals. We should work with the government and try to fix the death penalty. Instead of sending them to their death, we should try to give them a second chance in life by having them serve a longer sentence. Thank you.
That was very good. So just to make sure you're pro death penalty.
Against.